Think we're live. Good morning, everyone. I was gonna just post a little bit about the publishing process this morning, but since I was having a really good hair day and I just felt like talking, I thought I'd hop on and talk with you guys and just give you kind of the high level view of the publishing process. Because sometimes when I first start working with people, they don't know all the different steps that they have to go through in this process. And it's more than just writing a book, right? And I know that this is some of the stuff that kind of keeps people from, putting their book out there because they know the part that they can handle, which is the writing, but then they don't know the rest of the process. So let me just run you through basically what goes on in the publishing process from idea to book in your hand. And if you have questions along the way, please comment because I'm happy to answer them. So, from the very beginning, let's say you have an idea for a book. One of the first things you want to do is not, sit down at your desk and spend the next 3 hours writing up a storm. You actually want to plan it out. Okay. And part of the planning of this is how you're going to talk to people in real life, on social media, in your email, because you want to get people excited about your book. So there's all the stuff that you're doing here. But then as a writer, as a business owner, you need to also be getting people to be interested in that book. Because when you have the product, you finally have your book, you don't just want it sitting there doing nothing. You want it to actually work for your business. So you actually have to plan out how you're going to talk to people, what you're going to say, and some of the fun things that you're going to be able to do along the way to get people interested. And you can tell them about the writing process. You can pop on and be like, hey, I just wanted to do a Facebook Live today. I'm very excited that I'm starting my first book. I'm thinking about writing about this. You don't have to give them the whole story, and you don't have to have a title. You don't have to be married to your title at the very beginning before you can actually present about the book. Um, just talk a little bit about it. Talk about the writing process. Talk about some of the questions you're answering in the book. Talk about some of the inspiration. Talk about the cover because, I mean, that's a visual. That's an easy one. When you start doing the cover, you can talk about it. Hey, just got a draft back from the designer. When you get to the part where you actually have the final copy of the cover, make sure you post that, show people, get them excited because that makes it real not only for you, but also for your public, for your audience. You want to make sure that they know what's coming so they can buy it, right? Because you want to change their lives, they have to know it's coming. So that's one of the steps in the process is that marketing, PR, all of that piece. And usually you want to start that like 6 months before publishing, but it's never too late to start talking about it. Try not to do it any closer than 6 weeks to publishing because you got to build up some excitement, get some interest. I've had people before just pop on like the day before and they're like, hey, don't forget to go order my book tomorrow. And it just gets buried. You want to make sure that other people are finding out about your book, that they are getting excited, that they are following your journey, and that they're actually there on launch day. So make sure you've got that in your calendar. Make sure that you do that piece. Of course, there's the writing piece. Writing is important. If you don't write your book, you don't have anything to put between the covers. All this stuff, pretty important. Got to have that. But we're not talking about the writing piece today because, that's something that you already knew about. What happens after you write your book, though? This is when you need to have your team in place. If you don't work with a coach, then this might be your first step working with a team on your book. And you need to have a professional editor. I cannot stress that enough. A professional editor, not your best friend, unless they're a professional editor, not your mom, unless she's a professional editor, even your friends who are like English professors or English teachers or read a lot of books. Those are not necessarily the best people to be editing a book because they aren't going to be looking at the specific style that we use for editing a book. They aren't necessarily going to know that they need to match up certain pieces throughout the whole book. They aren't going to necessarily know to read for content overall and to also look for grammar and punctuation. There's a lot more to editing a book than just saying, oh, you left a word out and oh, you missed a period here. Way more than that. You want to make sure that it's clean, that it makes sense to your reader, that it's concise, that you aren't going off on tangents. Like there's a lot that goes into the editing piece. So you need to make sure that you have a professional editor on your side. Um, and just because a lot of people have those like flashbacks to school where they'd get something back and there's all that red pen on it, and they're like, oh my God, I hate this. Why did I put this out there? That is not correction. That is enhancement. Don't think of it as an editor correcting you. That is somebody who's stepping in and saying, I'm an advocate for you and I am your teammate. I'm your ally. I want you to be awesome. The editor's your friend and they want you to put out the best book possible. So when you get red lines back from your editor, try not to cringe. I get red lines back when I send stuff off to people. And I've been a professional writer for a long time. I've also been a professional editor for a long time. You know, it's it's something that we help each other with, and we all grow together, and we all make mistakes. I make mistakes, so don't think that I don't make mistakes. So if you are having those nerves about the editing process, think of it that way. This is a friend, an ally. This is somebody who wants to be your teammate in the publishing process. After you have a good edit, you can't just send off your manuscript working with if you're working with self-publishing, especially. If you're working with a hybrid publisher too, you want to make sure that they know what the interior of a book is supposed to look like. So make sure that you have some sort of options on that. It's always good to find out if they give you formatting or if you need to pick that stuff, the different fonts and whatnot. But the interior of your book is really important. So that's another step in the process. You want to make sure that it looks pretty. And it's not just, ooh, it looks pretty. It's like you want it to look like the interior of a professionally published book. So you can see like there's a heading up there. You can see that there's space down here in the middle. There are certain things that we handle during the formatting process that make it look professional. So you need to have that in your lineup, in your timeline. Once that piece is handled, and it's different for digital and paperback. So don't get confused about that. If you're working with someone, you know, aside from my company, if you're working with somebody who's telling you, oh yeah, I'll just give you one and you can upload it for both, it's different for both. So just know that ahead of time. I want you to be informed on that because, like, for example, you don't need to have nearly as much formatting for a digital copy because people have some flexibility when they get a Kindle copy of their book. They can, or a Kindle copy of someone else's book. So as your reader, they can go in and change the font, they can, or change the font size, they can make it bigger. So you don't want stuff like popping onto pages weird. So you have to have somebody handling that piece of it so you don't have, you know, like an extra gigantic space before a heading or whatever. Things like that happen if you put in too much formatting for it. So not to confuse you, but just something to watch for. Because you do want it to be professional. You don't want your reader to flip it open and be like, oh my God, what is this? I've probably talked about this before, but I got a book one time that was in 14-point Verdana. So it was like really big letters. And it wasn't a book that was intended to be a large font book. Large font is something like for people who are who have trouble with their eyes. You know, some people want a book that is aimed at people who may have some trouble seeing, which is fine. You know, if you want to put out a large font book for that purpose, that's fine. But you don't want that to be the only version that's out there. So when I saw this book, I was like, okay, we need to work on this because this font is so gigantic that you only had like 100 words on a page. It really did not look right. So we had to make some adjustments on that, make sure that it looked good. Because, you know, as you can see, I use my book as the example. As you can see, you don't want just 100 words on a page. You want it to look like a book. Um, Yeah, so that's part of the process too. And of course, there's the cover design. You want that to be professional. Um, you can handle your own cover. I did this one myself, but it was just kind of a tester to see what was possible. And I had a professional photo done. This wasn't something where I just, took a selfie or grabbed a stock photo that was free, because you want something that's going to stand out. If you're grabbing free stock photos, that's perfectly fine for your social media. I do it, everybody does it. But if you have a book, you want to make sure that it's something that not everybody is going to have. And there are certain social media photos that I know you've seen them 100 times, these stock photos. There's one where there's like a woman with her arms up and there's a sunset in the background and it's just her silhouette. You've seen that one 100 times. If I see it on a book cover, I'm going to know that that person got a free stock photo or that their designer got a free stock photo and they just decided to use that as the cover. Now, you can take a free stock photo and make changes to it and make it unique. That's fine, but you don't just want to put that on the cover. That's you're more unique than that. You deserve something fresher and something that speaks directly to your audience that they are going to know is just yours. You don't want five people with the same book cover. That's that doesn't stand out. That kind of hides, and it also looks kind of cheap, and you're not cheap. At least I hope you're not. So that's part of the process. So we have, at this point, we have the cover. We have the interior written, edited, and laid out. The next step is the publishing part. And you can approach this in several different ways. There's traditional publishing, there's self-publishing, there's hybrid publishing. Traditional publishing is not something I handle, so that's not really something we're going to talk about today. But if you're doing self-publishing or if you're doing publishing with a hybrid, there's going to be a platform that you upload it to or that your publisher uploads it to. And one of the best things today is that certain platforms allow you to do print on demand. What is that? That means that if somebody goes to Amazon to order a copy of my book, they place the order for that copy, the order goes to my publisher, and it prints one book. And that's it. I don't need to have a whole box of books in my basement. I don't need to have books at a warehouse somewhere. I know that when somebody goes to order my book, they print one and send it. And it doesn't make it an expensive process either. This isn't like some like boutique, super pricey sort of thing. This is something very achievable for anyone. So there are lots of different platforms out there. There are a couple I like to recommend for people who are doing self-publishing that make it super easy, where you just upload your book, you put in all your information, and you can print your book. If you're going with a hybrid, just make sure that you know that they have a really solid, high standard. I've seen some questionable stuff from certain hybrids, and you want to make sure that it's a high standard. High standard editing, high standard cover, super high quality on that stuff because it has to go with your brand and it has to speak to your audience. And I could go on and on and on. I'll probably do another live about something like that soon. But I just wanted to cover the basics of the publishing process for you guys today. So once that book is uploaded, there are certain things that you have to know if you're doing it yourself. Like you need to know the description for your book, which I always tell people use the stuff that's on the back. So the information that's on the back of the book, you've written it, or you've had a professional write it as marketing copy. Use that as your marketing copy. Put that in the book description when you have to upload your book for publishing. Know what genres you fit into, and it's more than just like nonfiction or fiction. There's a whole big breakdown beyond that. There's cooking, computers, animals, self-help. I've been diving in and trying to like go through a lot of stuff because there's just so many categories that it can be kind of overwhelming. So try to have an idea of where you would place that book. What are some of the general themes for your book? Because you want to know where to place it so people can find it. And you also need to know some keywords. I think these are the things that tend to trip people up. Knowing the keywords for your book, knowing the categories. The keywords are going to be things that are not just in your title. So, like mine is the Spark Method: How to Write a Book for Your Business Fast. So, I'm not going to put uh, write a book for your business as a keyword. And a keyword, of course, is one word or a phrase. And it's think about like SEO stuff. So it's going to be something that people are searching online that will help them find your book, because you will have random buyers out there too, people who are just searching and they randomly run across your book. So those keywords are important. And sometimes people hop on Amazon and they just search those keywords. Sometimes people hop on Google and just search the keywords. So you want to make sure that it's stuff that people are actually searching to look for your book. Um, so like mine, I think I have like business writing. I believe I'm in the category for business writing too. So thinking about things that people may be looking up, books, book writing for entrepreneurs. If you're in health and wellness, you may have a book about a certain way of eating. So then you may have different keywords involving that type of eating, or other things that people would be searching for, like if they have a specific health concern that they might look up that type of eating for. So then you would have the health concern listed as one of the keywords. So there are lots of things to think about when you're going through this publishing process. And I just wanted to make sure that you had an idea of what you need to know as you move through it, because sometimes it's just when you haven't done it before, when you haven't been in the background of one of these, it can be really confusing, and that can be kind of a hang up. So if you're watching this on replay, please make a comment, let me know what you want to know about, ask me some questions, because this is something that's so important. And when I sit down with a client and I'm working with them, like we're going through this 6-month process of, I have an idea, I have a book in my hand, and I want to make sure that they know everything that's going on in between idea and book. Because if you don't know what all is going on, you get surprised by stuff. And surprises can derail you and they can be confusing. And that means you have to stop what you're doing and try to figure out, do I need a team member? Do I need a psychiatrist? What do I need at this point? So I want to make sure that you know what's going on. And also, so it's March 22nd right now, and I'm going to be having a special announcement about something super awesome that we're going to be offering very soon. So please stay tuned, because I want to make sure that you guys don't miss it. Other than that, have a great Monday and ask me your questions.